Cool. Okay, happy Friday, everybody. Last day of STEM week. We'd like to welcome everyone who's on here today to celebrate with us, especially our students and teachers, to learn more about the amazing STEM careers out there. And for today, particularly in math. If everyone could please let us know who you are in the chat. If you're an educator, tell us what school or program you're joining us from, and maybe how many students you brought along with us today and the grade. So everyone also please, if you could, share your experience with us today on social media. I'm about to send these hashtags in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to be your facilitator for today. My name's Joe, and I'm going to be hosting this math panel. I'm the director of United Way's BoSTEM initiative, which focuses on providing career-inspiring opportunities for students typically underrepresented in STEM. I'm joined here today by an amazing group of STEM professionals who are here to share their stories with you all and answer your questions. So let's go through them one by one. First, we have Michelle Barnes. She's a marketing data analyst with Covalent Bonds. As a marketing data analyst, she takes massive clouds from the marketing department at her organization and uses a programming software called Witchcraft to turn the data into visuals that help the organization identify what they're doing well and where to improve. Michelle graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Math in 2020 and was able to join the NEVCA HACK Diversity program as a fellow of the 2021 cohort. Through that program, she was fortunate enough to intern as an analyst at HubSpot before landing in her current role with the help of a hack mentor. Michelle's goals is to have a career in which she does fascinating work with fellow knowledge seekers and will use the gifts she earns along the way to be the aspirational figure she wishes she'd seen when she was a kid. I also have a quick little link for you all that she's given us to share. So welcome, Michelle, and Witchcraft. What a great name for a programming. Next, we have Jessica Sanon. As an entrepreneur, Jessica is passionate about supporting and building economic mobility and capacity for marginalized communities. In 2017, she founded Systemic Flow, a partner of BoSTEM, a socially driven organization aiming to advance STEM learning for women who identify as Black, Indigenous, and a person of color, BIPOC. She's developed and implemented inclusive programming that really tackles the retention rate of BIPOC women in STEM holistically by bridging the educational workforce gap within the industry. Jessica sees the work that she does as a community effort, focusing on addressing members' needs by continuously listening to their perspectives in an open, safe space and collaborative environment. Jessica earned her MBA with a concentration in social entrepreneurship and impact management from Heller School of Social Policy and Impact Management at Brandeis University and holds a Bachelor of Science in Math and Statistics and Economics from the University of Massachusetts Amherst. And last but certainly not least, we're joined by Keli Callaghan, who leads all aspects of marketing at a company called Algorand. She jumped into blockchain and cryptography from Avid, where she was responsible for global customer engagement strategies, field marketing teams and programs, annual customer conferences, and the collaborative marketing partnership with Microsoft. Prior to Avid, Keli worked with several global tech enterprises and startups that included Sprint, ZMags, and Res1. Her roles have included the management of channel sales and marketing, developing marketing strategies and tactical execution plans to drive business awareness and growth, building go-to-market positioning and strategy, and leading cross-functional teams. Keli holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Marketing Communications and Business Ethics from Fairfield University and a Master's of Business Administration from Boston College. So I'm super pumped to be on this panel with you all because you all represent some very different aspects of STEM, and that STEM definitely is not just one thing. We kind of have Michelle, who's in the field doing analyst work, Jessica, who's on the education side, and Keli, who's on the marketing side. So I'm very excited to explore math with you all today. So I'm going to get us started with questions, but please, if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll get to them a little bit later. But my first question to get us started off for you all is math is not usually the favorite subject of students, and maybe the least favorite typically subject of students, unfortunately. And it can be a lot of work. It can be confusing at times. If you don't have the right teacher, it can be really tough. So my question to you all is, take us through your journey maybe you liked math right off the bat. Maybe it took a little while, but how did you get to where you are today? What kind of got you interested? What struggles did you face? Who helped you? Kind of just take us through your story and how you got to where you are. So why don't we start with Michelle, and then we can go to Kelly, and then we can end with Jessica.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the introduction, and super cool to be on this panel. I'm normally in these events as like an audience member, so I'm like a little in awe of my fellow panelists, and I'd be totally happy to just sit and like ask a bunch of questions. But anyways, yeah. So my journey through to math. When I was 6 years old, I read the book To Space and Back by Sally Ride. She's the first American woman to go to space. And I was like, cool, I'm gonna be an astronaut. Life path set, it's a wrap. And I was like, well, to be an astronaut, you just have to know all of the science and just all of the math. And so uh, for some reason my inner 6 year old hasn't quite grown out of that, so she's still like, you should still learn like all of the math things and all of the science things. um, and so basically going through school, being a physics major and then being a math major, and being able to do um, like physics research with a professor and like all this kind of stuff. For me, math just makes the world make sense. It's really scary how useful it is. It shouldn't be as correct as it is, but it is. And like that's like a whole philosophical question, which is fantastic. Um, but basically, like I liked math pretty much off the bat. I'm definitely a bit of an anxious type who likes to like control things, and so being able to take a mess and then like reduce it down into like things that make sense, whether it's visualizations or numbers or whatever, like, there's 1,000 ways to write an English essay, but there's one correct answer, usually one correct answer to a math problem, even if that answer is like all of the numbers, like infinity or something like that. But yeah, like I was lucky in that math just makes sense with my brain. Um, I like how you just get to build machines out of like symbols and numbers, and then just put whatever you want in it and just crank out an answer. And that's kind of how it worked for me. So yeah, I don't know if that really answered the question, but yeah, that was how I got into math.
I think it does answer the question, but I'd also be interested in terms of, were there people along the way who encouraged you and helped you, or was this kind of something that you took it and you literally went to space, at least in terms of your interest, metaphorically?
Yeah, no, I just math was just something that I was good at and that I enjoyed. Like I saw how like everybody hated it, but I was just like, I don't know, it seems fine to me. I don't know why y'all are complaining, but I'm having a good time.
Michelle totally jinxed herself. She was like, "Oh, I'm gonna plug it in, so I don't have any internet issues," and now she's frozen. We'll give it 1 second.
Am I back?
Ah, you're back.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I knew I was gonna jinx myself. But yeah, no, I just kind of enjoyed it, and was encouraged by like conversations that I had with my teachers about math, and just its incredible usefulness. And I just always thought it was cool. Like I was a huge nerd from the start, so that's probably why.
As is probably everyone on this call. Great, Michelle. That's awesome, and so good to hear that you were controversial amongst your peers. Of nobody likes math, but I love it. And you just ran with that, so that's awesome. Kelly, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get to where you are, and what was that like?
Yeah, I love that story, Michelle. That's fantastic. I can't believe I'm sitting on a panel with someone that just plugs the numbers in and they magically spit out answers. I think that's amazing. I've taken a slightly different path to get here. Academics growing up were always important. I always, excelled at school, and I was interested in it, right? Whether it was math, reading, science. But I think what's different is that in my role here, which not by accident, but I didn't set out on a path to do something in the STEM area. I'm a lot more creative. I like really tackling hard problems, but in a creative way, not in a insert the numbers and you're going to get an answer out, which takes a completely different set of creativity. My creativity is a little more arts and science based, but I ended up here in blockchain by jumping in and thinking this is a really big challenge for me from a marketing perspective. And, math science, blockchain is a lot of economics based, right? It's highly based on economics, cryptography, computer science. And I will tell you that economics was not my strong suit in college or beyond, right? Economics was not something that I was necessarily interested in or excelled at. And so, for me to be here, I think the important thing is, like, right now I work with a lot of people that have multiple PhDs in economics, in cryptography, of which I have not a single PhD in any of those subject matters. And I think what's more interesting about the path that I've taken is that I really like the complexity and the real world applications of some of these really hard problems and being able to communicate those, right? Like, you don't have to be a mathematician, you don't have to be an economist, you don't have to be a physicist, you don't have to be a computer scientist to actually, like, really get into an industry or into a career that has that at the forefront, where the underpinnings are math and science, right? I am super fortunate to be where I am in terms of blockchain. I find it fascinating. I find the intersection of computer science and math and problem solving, in addition to what the real world application, how it can really change people's lives with the technology that we're building, and being able to communicate that and work with the variety of people that are using our open source blockchain. So, not wanting that, I didn't grow up wanting to be an astronaut. I didn't want to grow up wanting to be a scientist, but I think, being in more of a science math based industry has been incredibly fun. It's incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly challenging. But I think, mine's just different because I didn't have a math background. I'm not a mathematician, and it's still super fun. And you can still find a career in this space, even if you're not data driven, right?
Yeah, super, super important to understand is you don't need to have intense technical skills like Michelle might have to work at a STEM company. There's tons of different jobs there. And it's interesting too, I'm hearing kind of a theme, at least from Michelle to Keli, around there is this whole component of communication in STEM, of like, it doesn't matter if you have the coolest idea or you're doing the most, technical stuff. If you can't communicate that to another person or make it accessible to others, then your impact is going to be significantly less. So it's a really important skill to have. And I
Yeah, I think
also,
especially, yeah, Joe, I'd add to that just because I think it's good for younger people to understand that, there's so much technology, right? There's so much stuff that's coming up, and a lot of it is very niche and it's very new. And for people to be able to wrap their heads around it and use it or leverage it or plug it into whatever else they're doing in their lives or their workplaces, that communication element is really important. And you don't need to be an expert. You don't need to have PhD in some of this stuff to be able to really understand it and understand how its real world application happens and who could benefit from it, whether it's robotics or math or data or science or blockchain or economics, any of that.
yeah, and I have one kind of follow-up question before we move on to you, Jessica. Reading your bio, I see you have a bachelor's of science in marketing, which is not very common, I would say. So I'd be really interested to hear, like, what went into that? What went into that decision, and kind of what was the difference in your experience, you think, from those who maybe didn't get the bachelor's of science?
Oh, I'm sorry. You said Jessica. I thought you were talking to me.
I am talking to you. Yeah, I'm talking to you.
Yeah. So, you know, I I like communications. I focused a lot on marketing and communications in generally, how brands really pivot and what the perception is, how you market to a global audience, how you run those communications. It's something that's more learned now by experience because things change so frequently with how communications happen. I mean, when I was going to college, social wasn't even, like Facebook was just kicking off, right? So it changes, and you gotta keep yourself current and keep yourself modern. I think when it comes down to it, marketing's writing and being able to be simple and clear in expressing communications. I will never forget, when I was growing up, it was always really important for my mom that we were all able to give directions. She really instilled, like, you need to be able to give someone directions to get to where you are. And this was before everyone had maps on their phones, right? Which, by the way, wasn't that long ago. I'm not that old. But you had to be, and I think, like, being able to, like, think about that at a really young age and how you communicate something as, and when you're younger, when you're in middle school, when you're in high school, being able to give some complicated direction to someone, but being like, you go down here, you go for a set of things. When you see this, you turn right. Like, it's simple and clear and crisp communications, right? It's not so, I studied marketing. It's a lot of writing. It's a lot of communications. It's and data, right? There's data that comes into play in marketing. I love looking at the numbers from a marketing perspective. How many eyeballs did that see? What was the reaction to that? How do we test against that? How many emails were open? I mean, there's a lot of data and math that comes into marketing just as a broad category. I think Jessica, Michelle, you can probably speak to that as well. And then, business ethics, global studies, like, it all kind of meshes together, right? So marketing was the glue.
That's a good segue to you, Jessica, in terms of like the giving of instructions and communication, so those that can learn, because you're very much on the education side of things. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you got to where you are and what has inspired you to inspire others?
Appreciate that. Joe, I will just disclose that my dog just got super excited out of nowhere. So if you hear barking and jumping,
Same behind me, Jessica. Maybe they heard each other. Maybe they feel it.
But wow, I think Michelle and Kelly just mentioned all of the things, and it's kind of hard to chime in. And I will say, Michelle, I think we're all still channeling our 6-year-old selves. And even though I have some kind of major in economics, to your point, Kelly, I don't know. I don't understand. I just have it just to have it. So I just wanted to say that. But how the journey started, very loaded question, but I'm going to try to time it down. So I grew up in the States, but English in my family is not our first language. My family's from Haiti. And I grew up just having difficulties being able to speak in front of people, being able to articulate what was on my mind in a way that just made sense to people. And education is such an important trait, or something that's important in my family. It's important in my culture, that there was kind of like this added pressure of like finding that one good thing that I was good at. And it turned out to be math. Math, to Michelle's point, just made all the sense for me. It took off the pressure of having to talk, right, in a way where like people just didn't understand what I was saying. But math typically does have that one answer. And when you're able to communicate it effectively through various steps and stuff, like, there was no added explanation. And I will say, in addition to that, and as people were talking about their experiences, I also realized that within the education system, you see few teachers of color who teach math. But actually, I was fortunate enough since 3rd grade to have a teacher of color, and more specifically, most of them were women. And so I felt like that kind of added presence in my life pushed me forward to like keep continuing with the love of math that I had, and continuing with like fostering, understanding what the beauty behind that looked like. And to Kelly's point about not having to be, a math major or having your PhD, I realized as I was going into my math degree or even outside of it that it's, to your point, Kelly, the transferable skills that I gain through taking these like rigorous math courses or taking other relevant courses where I'm able to kind of put the dots together from, creating a solution for point A, point B, point C, and etc. But I will say that I was such a math geek growing up because I had a passion for math. Straight A student, like I tell people all this time. There was one time this seventh grade teacher had the audacity to give me a D in her class, and I had, because I wanted to make sure what was going on, had a binder full of all of my homework, all of my quizzes ready to give to her because I was like, you're kidding me, right? Right? When it comes to math, that's probably the only subject that I would truly advocate for myself for and communicate effectively, right? Where you went wrong. And so that became an A minus, just throwing it out there. It's like the best thing in the world. And I was even valedictorian of my high school. But then when I got into school and decided to major in math at UMass, I failed my first semester of Calculus 1. And that was a reality that struck me because here I am thinking that I'm the smartest person in the world. I'm, ace math flawlessly in elementary, middle, and high school. And then I come to school and I'm like, how did I get an F in my class? And this is my first semester. And I signed myself up for this for 4 years, you know? And I think, to Joa's point about mentorships and representation in the field, I think if I didn't have, my family at UMass, whether it's the National Society of Black Engineers that I participated in, Haitian American Student Association, those things that kept things relevant for me to continue to pursue my degree. And not only that, but when I was a kid too, I had someone in my backyard in my family who was able to really hone in on those skills as well. So it's like having that added family, those friends, even if they didn't understand math, they're like, nah, you got this, right? Like, you're the only one in the family who's doing this math stuff. You're the only one who's going into education. Why not? But then I didn't know what to do with that math degree once I graduated. I was stuck. I knew I didn't want to sit 9 to 5 looking at a screen. That wasn't something that was a passion of mine. And then I ended up falling in love with anything related to youth development, education, workforce development, you name it. Anything where I felt, I could be a mentor to others who had the same kind of experiences like I did. And then started Systemic Flow based on one, what I experienced in school, to then understanding that it wasn't just me who was experiencing these kinds of issues. There were other sorts of women and women of color in the STEM field who ended up switching their major because that lack of academic preparation, but rather also like the confidence that they had, feeling like they couldn't continue with that STEM degree. And so I say this because for Systemic Flow, I'm super happy, that we've been able to kind of to work with BoSTEM and work with other community partners to say like, math, you don't have to be, how you say, math again is the skills that you kind of gain, the transferable knowledge that you gain from them. It's about building the confidence in yourself, even if you didn't get the answer right the first time or the second time. The point is that you're continuously trying and that you're overcoming whatever obstacles, whatever social norms is telling you elsewise. And so long story short, I hope that kind of answers your question from like my journey to how it started to what we're currently doing. And I'm just just super blessed to be a pioneer in the education field.
Yeah, definitely, Jessica. Definitely some gems in there, and I appreciate Joshua and Michelle's comments in the chat. You stole my thunder. I was going to say, yes, math is the universal language. Doesn't matter what language you speak, where you are in the world. Everyone does math the same. I mean, they might answer a question in a different route, but it's the same principles. It's the same ideas. It's universal to everything and is very much the language of science as well, and how we are able to make these observations and these predictions and understand how things are happening, because it is so, I don't want to say cut and dry, but there's not there's not a lot of, it's not an English essay, as Michelle said. And also another point I just want to bring up that you made, Jessica, is that all because you got your degree in math doesn't mean that you have to become a mathematician. or even be a status or in the like super mathy career, you've now gone on the other side and be like, okay, I want to take what I've learned in my knowledge and help the next generation and support them. So don't feel, kids on the call or listening later, that all because you major in something that you need to end up there. But math is one of those things that has incredible transferable knowledge and skills that you can take in a lot of different areas. Great. Well, that was awesome. Thank you all for sharing. Everyone on the Zoom, please start tossing your questions into the chat. We'll start asking the panelists after my next question here. So I'm curious to explore the issue of diversity, equity, inclusion with you all. It's no mystery that the STEM fields lack diversity, despite the propaganda I'm trying to put out here to show these wonderful women in STEM. Unfortunately, most of the field looks like me. So I'm really curious to know, what are your opinions on how do we make the field and the industries more diverse, more accessible, inclusive, and belonging, so that folks who are coming from these different backgrounds feel like they belong there. And have you personally, or your company or organization, have you found success? And if so, tell me a little bit what that looked like. So let's start with Keli this time.
Yeah, repeat the first part of your question, Joe.
So really around, what are your opinions on how we can diversify these industries to make them more accessible and inclusive?
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of work to be done. I think I can approach this from a couple different ways. Being in blockchain, so blockchain is, in a very, very simple sense, it's infrastructure, right? It's not dissimilar to the web or internet or how different pieces and components get connected together. And blockchain, one of the ethos of it is that it's very open and very inclusive and provides opportunity, usually from a financial perspective, where the barriers to entry to participation from different financial applications are far lower because blockchain represents more efficient technology, meaning it's less expensive than a bank. It's it's easier to build on. It's easier to develop on. It's easier to participate in. So I think from my perspective right now, being in open source blockchain technology, it's a lot easier to say there's so much work being done in diversity because of the nature of the tech and what it opens the doors to. We partner with people, Flex FinTech, who's working on doing identity solutions across Africa so that more people can have access to a bank account. You've got things where different models. There's a company out of Switzerland who's working on making it so that anyone can understand what air quality monitoring means and what their air quality is, and they can measure that and contribute back to like this broader, greater measuring metric system. And so I think and I know here in Boston, Algorand is a technology company. We've got a lot of really super smart scientists and economists and mathematicians and computer science folks out of MIT. It's a very diverse set. So I think from a marketing perspective, I mean, marketing's and everything, right? But from a, what we're doing in blockchain, like we're inherently bringing a lot of diversity to what we do just because of the nature of our technology. And, to say something from a marketing perspective, I think that's another interesting point, is that when we look at technology that really anyone can use, there's not a niche here. You can't personify them this particular way, and that's the only type of person we go after. When you're marketing technology that anyone can use, you have to think about all of those different personas and what they'll use it for. And so, from a marketing perspective, we're also marketing to a very diverse set of people and making sure that everyone's included in being able to use open. So I think I've got a little more of a nuanced view, and you guys might work for slightly different organizations that have different takes on it. But I think from my perspective, blockchain is very open and inclusive. So we're inherently building that in. There's obviously more to be done there. But I think, we go above and beyond from having the right people included, having the right partners around the world included, to, the way we market and making sure that we're covering all those different profiles and all those different people in diverse backgrounds from around the world.
Great, thanks, Kelly. Michelle, what about you? What do you think?
Yeah, so you are right, Joe, that a lot of the industry looks like you. But actually, the company that I'm working for right now, we're a small team. It's only 8 of us. However, there's only one man on the team. It was founded by women, and everyone is a woman except for Don, and he is a black man. So, and also, before this job, I interned at HubSpot for the summer, and all of the marketing interns were women of color. Like half of them were black women, and then there was again one male, um, and none of them were. All of them were people of color, and so it was. I see that there are strides being made to include people, because the talent is there. Uh, that's part of the mission of like the Hack Diversity program that I came through, which was uh, focused on was created because the tech companies in Boston were like, we know that there's a lot of talent out here in the, BIPOC community, but we're just not seeing the applications, like we're not seeing them come through. And so they went to the NEVCA, the New England Venture Capital Association, and they created this program where they take students of color, people who are interested in tech, and just give them the resources to get into the program. And so that's the biggest part, the work that Hack Diversity is doing, the work that Jessica is doing. It's about getting people into the spaces where they weren't before and where they may have felt like they didn't belong. Um, and about instilling that confidence that even if you do end up being the only person of color in the room, which like as a math major happened to me a lot, um, you still you can still thrive. You're still just as competent and worthy as anybody else. Um, and so I think that there is more work to be done, but I see a lot of movement in the right direction. And I also think that the youth of today are kind of unbound by the societal restrictions that older generations may have had. Um, I mean, I remember like when I was 6 years old going around telling people I wanted to be an astronaut, so many people were like, I remember my kindergarten teacher was like, I think you'd be better like as an author. You write good too. I was like, that's nice. So I guess I'll go to space and write a book. Sally Ride did that. I can do that too. um, or like, getting my math degree, when I tell people I'd major in math, then they'd ask me if I was going to become a teacher afterwards. And like, no offense to y'all, but no, absolutely not. I have been a student and I have seen what my math teachers have gone through, and I do not want to do that. So bless you, math teachers, because you are truly doing God's work. But it was just like interesting to me how no one asked me if I was going to be like an engineer or if I was going to be a mathematician or anything. Like it was always like, oh, a teacher or something. And so just challenging those notions, standing on your own 2 feet and feeling like I know what I want to do and it doesn't matter what other people say, uh, and finding your tribe, finding like-minded people who look like you, people who don't look like you, but have something in common, similar backgrounds, that kind of thing. It's all about, kicking down the door, basically, and making space for yourself and hopefully for others to follow you. So, yeah.
Awesome, Michelle. So hearing from Kelly, we're thinking more about like, okay, the tech itself, how can we make that more accessible to folks? With you, Michelle, it's starting to see these changes in terms of how companies are operating to specifically get people into those internship or those sort of entry level roles and help to build them up. And then there's this entrepreneurship component where you're now part of this team that is incredibly diverse, and you're able to kind of, do the things that you're doing as a company that maybe in the past those opportunities not only maybe weren't available to you, but more than likely you had no idea that this even existed. I mean, the technology didn't exist, but like you just didn't even know that this was even a pathway that you could go down. So that's all super interesting. And so I'm really excited to hear that we feel like things are starting to move. We have a long way to go, but we're getting some momentum here. So I'd be interested, Jessica, as you're coming from more the education perspective, what do you think? I mean, this is kind of what you're trying to solve for.
Yeah, a couple of things. I will say, for one, just the traditional model of classroom and how things are taught obviously needs some improvement, but unfortunately, there's just so much, you know, external factors that get in the way of that, such as, MCAS scores, SATs, where, teachers there's like this added pressure of what they can and cannot do.
Politics.
Politics, you know what I'm saying, Joe? Let's not get into it, but yes, all of those. And for systemic flow, we try to go beyond that classroom setting to say, let's have the students be the teachers, right? Let's meet them where they are, and we work from there. We do more of like this flipped classroom model, scaffolding model, where students, if they have the desire to learn and the passion to learn, which they do, they will go home and do the research that they need to do, and then come back the next day in our program, and be willing to teach themselves and be willing to teach their peers. We have some say on, the ways in which we go about, teaching specific curriculum, but really it's the student, or the youth rather, that really surpasses kind of the knowledge in some areas for our teachers and stuff like that. And when I say we go beyond the traditional model, we don't just look at test scores. We actually don't provide scores on any of the things that we do because it's just a limiting factor. We also do things like this and host panel events where students can kind of get that mentorship and hear from other professionals on, how maybe they weren't, someone who was really great at math, but hey, look at them, they're a data analyst, or what have you. And so being able to leverage those lived experiences over like the technical kind of background is what we see, or what we value in all of the programming that we do, and who we actually interview and invite to be a part of our systemic flow team. And that's just a whole load of questions. I'm going into this. And also I would say, we're actually currently working to address what our current program and our model looks like by doing a lot of focus groups, not just with educators, but with the youth themselves, to let us know what is working well with our programming, where can we need improvements, what do you hope to see in the future? Because without their voices, we would be building a product that is worthless, essentially, or we would be providing services that really doesn't speak to the needs or address the needs of our community. So we do that in everything we do. We intentionally recruit people of color within any, again, within any of our job opportunities there are. And in fact, a lot of the programming that we do, again, specifically uplifts women of color in the field. And so our program coordinators are all women of color, right? We, as much as we can acknowledge that and do that, majority, and I've been blessed to say that all of them have been, to the point where they're able to go back to a lot of our community partners and work with students who look like them, so that they can be like, oh wow, Jessica, like you did this, like yes we did, and you can too. And they know that, like they know that they don't need us to say that they can, but I think, again, the intentionality and how we go about teaching them will reinforce those kinds of opportunities for them. So I don't know if that answers your questions from the education perspective, Joe, but I think for just moving forward, two things I would say to anybody who owns a company, or looking to recruit, or people who want to get into the field. One thing that I always do is always ask anything about within their racial equity work, right? And if, a company comes back to you and they're saying, something that is out of the norm or doesn't make sense, or it's not really uplifting anything of your values, then you really have to think about, one, do I really see myself here? 2, being able to ask if I will get the support that I need, and 3, just honestly making that decision of whether that is a good fit for you or moving forward. And it's not necessarily a negative thing in terms of, you know, having to find something different. It's just, you know, you're starting to realize and understand the true value add that you have to a specific company or a program and things. And I would say, you know, vice versa to currently being in the program, especially for our educators and just the education system in general, if there are ways to, you know, have students really, you know, invite students to really grow through their own understanding and learning, then I think that really would put us in the direction of, you know, understanding, again, valuing those lived experiences over anything else, and having to play things by the book.
Yeah, that's a good.
And partnering with organizations like BoSTEM who are like mission aligned, you know? And that's the beauty of like the STEM world oftentimes, is a lot of organizations is realizing that gap, and we are strategically partnering in a way where we kind of understands what our strengths are. And it has just been a true blessing to be a part of the BoSTEM community, and figuring out ways where we can engage and uplift students to love STEM the way that we do.
Swear I did not pay Jessica to say nice things about us. But lots of great stuff in there. I mean, it's a little sad, right, that we have to have these ancillary programs, these outside programs to help pick up the pieces where maybe the traditional education system might not be working for all of our students. But also it's, you know, what you said about student voice, that's something that we always see amongst our programs, of like the folks who get student voice and choice right in a program are some of the most successful and engaging programs for students, the ones they keep coming back to and asking for more, because there is that sense of autonomy and competency that you get from helping to kind of build alongside and having your voice heard, and then also used in a way to make something improved and better. It's just great stuff. Okay, so now we got about 15 more minutes. So we got one question in the chat, which I think you can do both, you know, generally, but also for you, is like we said earlier, math can be tough. So what do you kind of have to say to students who might feel discouraged? Maybe it's not their bag of chips. You know, what can help us turn kids on to math and keep them going through what will likely be failures? Because like you said, Jessica, you had a tough time in your calculus course, but you picked yourself back up and you kept going. So I'll throw this out to anyone who kind of wants to take it.
I
You're
love this
unmuted,
question
so.
because math was not my bag of chips, right? Here's the thing about math and numbers, it's in everything. Like you could take a completely liberal arts and find yourself somewhere. I mean, take marketing, right? I didn't study math. I didn't study economics. I didn't study computer science. I wasn't in AP math growing up. Math is logical thinking, right? Like high school, like that math is logic. But once you get out into the real world, you will find that math is everywhere. It's a part of so many things. Marketing, you wouldn't think of marketing to being like a math and numbers based approach, but I'm driven by marketing metrics, right? And so even if you hate it, like you got to stick it with it and understand it because it's so important. You don't have to have aspirations to be an astronaut. That is a whole different level of math, right? Like that's fine. And there's some very big ambitious people that want to go down that path. You got to stick with it and then just make sure you understand like what's there, because it's a part of so many different things. And I guarantee for 99% of you on here, you know, it's going to be a part of your lives, especially as technology becomes more at the forefront of each and every aspect of our worlds. Math is just inherently a part of it. So stick with it. It's okay. You don't have to get A pluses in it and you don't have to take it to the moon.
Yeah, you don't have to take it to the moon. Less competition for me. So I am a person who is fortunate enough that math just kind of made sense with the way that I think. But I find that first off, you don't have to force it. If math just really is not your thing, you just like do the best you can, but don't make yourself hate it. because like that's the most heartbreaking thing for me, is when people just like hate math, and I'm like, no, it's fine, I promise it's not that bad. And also reach out, like try to find people who can help you, whether that's your teacher or peers who are doing well or peers who are also struggling. One of the best ways to learn math is to teach it. So when you have to explain the process of how you are trying to solve a problem, it helps you both, make sure that you really understand what's going on. And if you're explaining it to someone who also has an idea of how to solve the problem, they can help identify issues in your logical thinking. Like that's the biggest part about math. It's the logical thinking of how you go step by step, process by process, which is how so much of the technological world works. But also another thing is that people often feel like, I'll never use this. This isn't important at all. And it's like, well, I mean, if you want to know which insurance you should pick, which credit card has a best rate, like what savings you should look at, you probably want to know a little bit about numbers. You don't have to be, math brain, like robot, nerd, geek, or anything like that, but you have to, like, understanding like just the basics of like compounding interest, which just means that like you do multiplication over and over again. Like that's all it is. So I would say like find applications that make sense to you. So in that case of like many people like money, people don't like math, but they like money, and money and math go together. So one way is to find like real life applications for yourself that might help you kind of further explore what you're learning and apply that. And then again, teaching it, or even if you don't have someone to teach it to, saying it out loud and talking out loud through your process. I when I do math, I'm like a crazy person. I'm just pacing back and forth talking to myself because I'm trying to think through a problem. And sometimes you'll say something and be like, wait, no, that's not right. That's not right. It sounds different out loud than in your head. So that'd be another thing. Reaching out for help, which like I know everyone says, but like trust me, just do it. I have the war flashbacks to prove that it's a lot better when you ask for help early on. And then even if you feel discouraged, I would just say like, do what you need to, and just don't burn yourself out on it. Don't make it so that you hate it, because unfortunately you're going to do it for a little bit longer, and if you hate it, it's going to be a really bad time. So at the very least, maybe if you can just get yourself to like, I'm not a fan, but I can get it done, that's a good place to be. Yeah, I hope that's helpful advice.
I don't even know how I could follow up after Kelly and Michelle. You all said it all. Yeah, to piggyback off of what Michelle said in terms of asking for help. I know in college when I struggled a lot, I actually just limited who I reached out to, because I thought I only had this one professor I had to go to, and I had to go to this one advisor that I had to go to for help, and they were the people who actually was um, my biggest obstacle, right? And it wasn't until like my fourth year I started branching out, and I started going to other people's classes, started going to other professor office hours, and that I'm like, wow, like there's so many people out there who are willing to help and willing to hear, that I shouldn't be afraid to advocate for myself and get the help that I need. And so for those who are listening and who are ever feeling discouraged, I will say that oftentimes that discouragement is not from you, it's probably from external factors. And so what you need to do is take a clear scan of what is that's causing you to feel this way, and try to figure out how to address it, right? Everyone's super different. As I mentioned, it was my professor. I didn't realize 3-4 years later that I can go to other professors for help. And it was something as simple as that. And so I would just say that your education is literally in your own hands. I know there may be cultural and family kind of obstacles to, right? Pressures of, feeling like you have to do well, you have to do well. But at the end of the day, you're the one who's gonna wake up the next day and go to that class. You're the one who's gonna, 4 years down the road, take that, go interview at Systemic Flow to see if you can get the job or something like that, And so I would just encourage you, to Michelle's point, find that one thing that attracts you to math, that gives you that love for math, whether it is money, whether it is helping your family out and understanding their bills or what have you, and then grow your learning from there. So it's really about, like, in this journey, that self-growth and self-development that you really need to have, for you to kind of push forward, or not kind of, for you to push forward. Because you're going to be in a lot of classrooms with a lot of teachers that may or may be helpful, a lot of, friends who may or may be helpful, but it's really you, who have to kind of shift that mindset to grow and learn if you want to.
Awesome.
Very well said, Jessica.
Okay, so we're just about out of time. So I have one last question for everyone. But before that, I just want to make sure we're kind of at the end of STEM week, but we're going to have free access to the Franklin Park Zoo tomorrow for BPS families. So, or for any of you, if you want to show up, you know a guy. So please join us tomorrow between 10 and 2 p.m. And also give us another shout out again, using some of the hashtags, Mass STEM Week, See Yourself in STEM. And I'll also just special thanks, obviously, to United Way, that's me, but also Boston Public Schools, all the panelists here today, and everyone else who's contributed throughout the week and will continue to contribute to change the narrative as well as the reality around diversity in STEM. So my last question to you all is, we've talked a lot about different skills and knowledge and solving problems. And so I'd just be curious, what do you feel like is the single skill that you had or developed that has really been the most important to you and has really contributed the most to your success in your career? I'll let anyone start because I know you probably all have to give that a second of thought.
For me, I would say I'm a big picture thinker. I'm able to connect the dots super quick. Can I articulate that? That takes some time, but I'm able to I'm able to kind of see where things are going. Hence why with Systemic Flow we're able to develop X and Y kind of programs and things like that, as an example. So big picture thinker, and then how to get there. Still needs improvement on how to articulate that, but it's there. I'm able to kind of just visualize things nicely.
Can you just write a math equation for it? That might be the easiest way.
I tried, but it's like, I don't even know. It has no answer quite yet.
Yeah, for me, communication, being able to clearly, sorry, Jessica, clearly articulate.
Yeah, no, opposite. I realized that.
Not everyone has the same strengths,
right?
Yeah. Like, to the point about, like, being told that I might be an author or something, like, a lot of people did assume that I was like an English major or whatever, but like it's just because I was raised on books and PBS. So like I read a lot and I watched a lot of educational programming, and then I went to a school where I was made to like read all the classical literature and all that stuff and philosophy and all that stuff, while also having my science brain. And so I find that being able to connect the two is very useful and is a skill that I've seen that a lot of employers point to as a reason why they're interested in me. Because like apparently I'm good at explaining relatively complex things with like analogies, she said, like, and
instead you use a simile.
Exactly. And it's like how you explain how a star explodes by comparing it to the forest fire in Bambi. I But yeah, I would say communication. Like, even if you are interested in the maths and sciences, don't slouch on your liberal arts, don't slouch on your literature. Like, not only will it be helpful in communicating like the technical aspects of what you're doing, but also having ways that you can analogize and explain using metaphors and similes that like the average person would understand, um, with references to, you know, pop culture and literature and all that kind of thing is very useful, is a very useful skill. So yeah, I would say communication. And also it helps if you have a drive, if you're like greedy about knowledge. Like, I got into data because I want to know all the things. And so, and data is a great place to know all the things, especially marketing data, because people come to you and they're like, what's going on here? And you're like, ooh, well, this person looked at this page for this long and they scrolled down this far. And this many people from this country did that, whereas in this country it was different things. So um, that's also very useful. So yeah, drive for knowledge and also communication.
I appreciate the communication part because I did slack in English throughout school because I was like, I'm going into math. I don't need all of that stuff. So I truly appreciate that perspective of like, you kind of have to know it all or just, you know, be able, not know it all, but be willing and ready to, you know, learn in all types of disciplines. So thank you for that, Michelle.
Kelly, wrap us up.
Yeah, I think, similar theme, but stay curious, right? Like find the hard things and just be interested in why that's a hard thing, right? And stay curious and take on the hard problems, hard challenges. And that might not be like a math equation.
Great. Well, thank you all again. It was so fun to be here with you all today. And to all those listening, I hope you enjoyed it as well. Happy STEM week, happy weekend, and we'll see y'all around.
Thanks, Joe. Great job on these. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.